Hi, can you see me now?
Yeah, thank you for
Hi,
joining us. I'm glad you made it. Sorry, it was short notice, but I believe
my
it was
pleasure.
worth it at the end of the day. Yeah, so
My
I'm
pleasure.
guessing since you already joined, I just like to go straight into your session. The other session we have pre-recorded videos, so it would just be great if you just had the session now. So it's going to be an interactive session, mostly like a dialogue, and we'll get to hear from you, your thoughts, and ask a few questions. So I'm guessing you were able to catch up, but if you didn't, I recently played Jack's speech at the last Esri user conference where he talked about GIS for a sustainable future. And let me just see if I could play a clip from that recording. So um, I'm going to play a clip from that recording very soon, but I'll just get your tips or your thoughts generally regarding GIS for sustainability, specifically for sustaining the future of cities, taking African cities into perspective. What do you think innovators should be focusing on in Africa right now with regards to GIS?
So, well, at the moment, there's a lot really happening on the GIS world, and first of all, I mean, I'd like to wish you a happy GIS Day.
Yeah,
It's to everyone. Uh, it's no, there's a few aspects of the technology really that are very I mean stuff that we really haven't been able to do in the past. And today, because we've got faster processors, faster, more data, more accessibility, people are a bit more focused on or understanding more of maps. People gather data all the time, so now we have a bit more for clarity on the basics of the information that we were always trying to collect. And today, when this old data is put on top of a GIS and has a georeference, it kind of makes really the possibilities endless. For Africa specifically, I mean, we work a lot with a lot of the African nations on lots of side of things. So we kind of work very much focus on the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and and for us, we kind of think that there is really a lot of potential out of all the new technologies and the data streams that are coming in nowadays. We think we've seen a lot of African nations kind of pick up really a lot in the short in the short past. Literally recently, in the past 5 years, with all the kind of advancement in things like open APIs for machine learning, data being collected and available online, all the kind of data portals and data hubs that are put out online for people to use for educational purposes, for startups, for businesses, for people basically sitting in the room in front of their laptops. It kind of gives a lot of potential and use for people now to use things like ArcGIS Online, integrate that with machine learning libraries, make more sense out of data. And lots of that, I think one of the big things is is all these open libraries that people nowadays look into. A lot of our African nations nowadays kind of plug into things like open satellite imagery, for instance, create models that extract certain aspects from these satellite imagery. A lot of the census data that's put by the UN and by lots of other organizations. We have also what we've called the Africa Geoportal, which is a data hub that is focused on Africa, where lots of our African brothers and sisters kind of put up a lot of the data from different parts of the continent. And what we do is essentially kind of avail that data in a geo enabled side of things, so it's geo indexed. It's lots of GIS data that's out there. very accessible. You can build applications on it, build front-end analytics on it. It's a very good resource to look at, and lots of our nations have leveraged this as one of the main resources where open data standards nowadays kind of stand and kind of avail that data for lots of our African neighbors.
Oh yeah.
Hope this answers the question,
Yes, it does. I quite agree with you about the part of open data being vital to innovation in Africa, because there's a lot of buzz in the GIS community about open source, and a large percentage of the community, Giseria and around the GIS industry in Africa, tend to lean towards open source frameworks and technologies, and I'm happy Esri is doing a lot in that regard. But
yep.
How do you see open source technologies and frameworks, especially open APIs and open data in general, being used in the design space and being a key driver for design innovation? Because I believe there's a lot of design thinking that needs to go into cities and communities in Africa if we're going to talk about sustainability. So how will open technologies, open APIs play, and what do you think innovators like startups, developers should be leaning into?
So, I mean, the word open is obviously a very big word in the sense that organizations such as Esri and lots of other companies, when they create that software, they kind of create based on what we call open standards. These standards have been created by the companies like Esri and lots of all other geospatial technology providers and developers around the world that kind of come together with, I don't know if you've heard of the Open Geospatial Consortium, for example, the OGC, where lots of users, all the GIS users from around the world come together. They sit around and discuss different industries and kind of come up to streamline standard technologies, or what we call open standards that lots of any technology provider. So let's say a company, new startup that is hoping to develop a solution to kind of help communities, to help a certain problem, certain business unit somewhere. As long as they base their development or their coding based on open standards, that means that if you take that solution, plug it into any part of a huge system, what happens is, as long as it abides by these open standards, it also understands all other systems that come together within this organization. What I want to say is that data that comes in, for example, the data that comes in under certain has certain metadata that is attached to it, has specific explanation of every column or every attribute in the data. The format of the data has a certain look and feel, and that kind of creates a governance model. Whereas if you create that solution, plug it into a big system that has lots of other technologies around, what happens is it kind of, because they're all based on open standards, they can very easily read data from each other from one another to each other. They also are very easy to kind of develop things on top of, because they abide by these rules that are governing the geospatial data around the world. So geospatial, so open standards is one aspect. Now the other aspect is open data. So open data is very much the notion of again, governments, authoritative entities putting the data online in what we call data hubs. Esri, for example, where Jack has kind of very much focused on what we call our GIS hub, which is Esri's version of that data hub that is very geospatial centric. It kind of we have hundreds of governments around the world nowadays that have they create their own data hub. They basically put certain data sets that come from the census authorities, from other authorities, to enable, again, startups, academic people doing research in universities and so forth, to access that data, pick that data up, like the data in my government, in my own city, pick that data up, do something with it, understand it well, and then download it, create an application of it. And in response, what I do is I contribute that back to my government, tell them, well, this is an idea, an innovative idea using the data that you've provided. And therefore, it kind of leads to, again, incubation of these startups, makes these startups kind of accelerate very fast. It also helps governments kind of find big solutions to problems they might be spending, well, millions and millions to kind of solve, and then suddenly a bright African youngster kind of comes up with that bright idea because he has access to the data, the open data that is governed by these open standards, but also has the tools now, all the open APIs that are out there, all the open Esri APIs as well. They're out there to use Esri's tools, and as well can very much kind of plug into Esri's tools, which kind of is provided for many academic institutions and startups for no cost whatsoever to be used.
Yeah, that's a great one. I personally have some experience with ArcGIS Hub, and I've seen great examples of cities around the world using it to do a lot of amazing things, and especially with regards to open data. We have a few minutes left, and I would just like to chip in one last question. Seeing as you have some experience in the public sector, so I'm hopeful that stakeholders in the public sector and government will watch this live stream, and what they're going to be asking is what kind of what strategies should they be looking forward to? What kind of investments in GIS should local governments and state governments be making in order to drive grassroots sustainability right now? What kind of GIS investments should it be making? Is it AI? Is it machine learning? Is it imagery? Is it community collaborative mapping effort? Is it data acquisition? So what investments should African leaders right now be making in GIS?
Okay, I mean it's a brilliant question, because it comes back really to what's our response, what's our action plan as Africans, and so basically there are three parts, like how Esri breaks this usually into three parts, and this is how we even design our software. Which is the data storage part of things, which is where we store data, what we call a system of record, which is where all the GIS kind of tagged data, location-aware data is stored. That could be utilities, transportation, and all the kind of data that you're familiar with. But then there is once you have that data, and this is usually one step in any nation's capital investment. This is what they spend money to kind of obtain, which is the data. Now, this data could be, which is the first component. This data could be, again, satellite imagery, could be your census data, could be things like the government data. But it goes back to the aspect, how well this data needs to be prepared. Goes back to the aspect of, again, open standards. They need to follow the right standards in order for myself, for example, creating an application in the Ministry of Health, for example. I can access easily data coming from the Department of Transport, coming from the department, from the utilities sector, from the environment agency, combining this data together very easily. They all understand each other. They all kind of follow the same, let's say, ISO kind of standards, OGC standards. And I can create an application very, very fast, understand where pollution in my city occurs most, during which parts of the day, and so forth. Now, this is how I store the data. Now, the analytics part of things, which is calculating, again, how pollution propagates around my city or my country, things like rising levels of anything, unemployment, lots of all the issues, the societal or socio-demographical issues that can come up. That kind of comes up with the analytical side of things, which is the second part of the system. And the analytics side today, like you're saying, there's a lot of machine learning packages up in Python, for instance. If you plug into Python packages, thousands and thousands of these libraries are open. You can use them, inherit them, build your model on it, as long as you have the data well defined, well stored in that respect. Now, the third aspect is the accessibility, which is what I was just talking about earlier on. Just again, data hubs, people having access to data, not just government holding data, I'm not saying open all your data. As a government leader, you want to open the bits where you want solution to your problems, and because you want to capitalize, you don't want to get, again, lots of these companies around the world to come and you have to have a big overhead of spending in order to get big ready-made solutions from different organizations. You can use things like ArcGIS Hub, for example, to put all the data sets that you think have potential for great and certain analytics that would be very useful, and share that to, again, research students, share another portion of the data, up to startups, to other, again, organizations that you think could very much find solutions to problems you would end up spending millions and probably billions of dollars kind of solving over the years. So it's these are the three parts: the storage of the data, well maintained, use this open data, the analytics side of things, which again, ArcGIS platform is full of it, and it kind of very easily can bring in a lot of these Python libraries, open Python libraries that I personally kind of worked with a lot, very, very useful stuff. And there's the stuff with sharing the data, again, kind of enables us to communicate the data and having giving people access into the system in order to kind of do all these analytics and all the other stuff that, the fancy stuff that can solve a lot of world problems.
All right. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It means a lot to me and to the community as well. And I believe that when people watch this video, they're going to go back inspired and excited to try their hands out on all the amazing work and technologies that Esri has put in to make working with GIS exciting and amazing. So thank you very much, Dr. Adel, and I'm looking forward to hanging out some other time. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks for inviting very much, and hopefully, this day will go even more amazing than it already has been. Thank you.
Yeah.